Okay, so my collection wouldn't show it, but I've always really loved vintage watches. I love their sizing, I think they're so beautiful, and with the right watches, you can find some ridiculous deals. But I've never pulled the trigger and actually bought one. Here's why. So there's 3 big reasons on why I've never actually bought a vintage watch. Number 1, just not having enough information about it and not knowing enough to confidently buy it. Number 2, it's going to need a little bit of TLC. It's going to need a little bit of love and care post-purchase that I just don't want to commit to. So these 2 can really eloquently be summed up to the ball achery of it all. Edit that out. And the last reason, just as I'm saving my money, just as I've got enough money to purchase something, and I think, maybe this is the time I'm gonna buy that GMT Master 16700 or that Tudor Submariner. I've got the money, let's pull the trigger. My authorized dealer will call with something that I can't say no to. My FOMO will kick in and I'll say, okay, I'm not going to get this call again, but that Tudor Sub, that's not going anywhere. So I better buy this modern watch that I've just been offered. And this keeps happening over and over again. Lather, rinse, repeat. Despite really loving vintage watches, I think they're these unique little pieces of history. They have so many odd and different watches, weird complications. I still haven't actually put my money where my mouth is and purchased one. This is the biggest reason why I've been cautious of the vintage world and even the secondary world. The watch I'm interested in will either not have enough information or the information it does come with will turn me off. I was in Inverness years and years ago, but I saw this cool little Air King for sale in a window. It was right up my alley. At the time, I was saving up for and interested in a modern Oyster Perpetual, and I thought maybe this could scratch that itch. I went in, tried it on, absolutely loved it, and the salesperson told me that it came with the original box and papers. Cool, great, love it, that's what I want to hear. They then pulled out the box, which was a very not period correct Rolex box. When I queried it, they insisted that it was the right box and it was the box it came with. It is a Rolex box, and it just completely turned me off. I didn't want to buy that watch anymore. I'm sure the watch was perfectly authentic. I didn't have any worries about that. And the salesperson was doing their best. But it made me think, nah, I'll keep holding out for that 34mm Oyster Perpetual. Which I did. And I bought. But there are so many vintage watches that I love that just don't come with enough information. And these are expensive purchases. For how much money it's going to cost, I'm going to need that information. Oftentimes for me, I need that information because I just don't know enough about this watch to be able to detect some of the minute details that other people can detect, like a dial swap or a tiny change in hands, or maybe the coronet isn't quite right. It just scares me enough. This could be remedied by doing a little bit more research, but I'm just not obsessed enough. And some of this stuff is so obscure, it's so weird. There just isn't enough information out there. Now, for some people, this won't be a big deal at all. They won't mind if there's been a dial swap or some aftermarket things have happened. They just want that watch. And to a certain point, I don't mind either, but I need to know upfront what has happened to this watch. I need that transparency in what I'm buying, and that will affect its worth for me. Reason number 2 I'm scared of buying vintage is this watch likely will need a little bit of love after purchasing, and how much love is needed will depend on your personal style and preferences. For me, I don't mind a bit of patina and a bit of scratches. I can cope with that. I just can't tell you how many times I've come across a cool little vintage number in a small shop somewhere, and they can't tell me when it was last serviced. They don't have this information to hand, or they didn't get it from the person who brought it in. Or sometimes there'll even be little things that aren't correct, like the buckle won't be right, or something like that that will bug me, and I'll need to send it off and get the right buckle. So something to keep in mind, this little baby might need to be sent off first thing for a service rather than being enjoyed straight away. A good vintage watch is like a good vintage car. It might have some mileage left on it, but you do need to take care of it. I should say as well, this isn't every vintage watch. There are loads of them that are serviced, that have the history, have all the details. They're ready to go, baby. But just something to keep in mind and ask about before buying. If you're a simpleton like me who needs that instant gratification of wearing the watch after you just buy it, not worrying, not thinking about it, it could be a turnoff for you as well, like it is for me. And the last reason why I haven't bought a vintage watch yet, I always seem to get the call at the wrong time. Well, is there a wrong time to finally get the call? I guess it's the right time, but it's never quite right. This is what always happens to me. This is the routine. I will register my interest for all the watches that I want. I don't hear anything for years. Years and years, 3 years, whatever will go by. And then all of a sudden, all my chickens come home to roost. And I've got the call on a few too many watches and I can't say no to any of them. And then I'm just skint for another 3 to 5 years when, when I'll wait to get the next round of the calls. These are such first world problems. I actually can't listen to myself right now. Some people have real problems, okay? But this is the routine that always seems to keep happening. I've been eyeing up a few vintage and neo-vintage models, so a GMT Master 16700, a Tudor Submariner, a birth year Breguet Classique, although I don't enjoy calling my birth year vintage, and a little two-tone Cartier Santos Galbet. And I really want all of these, but as soon as I'm about to buy, as soon as my money's right, I will get the call and my FOMO will kick in. These are not real problems though, Brittany. I don't want this video to come across as, don't buy vintage, they're all fakes. Because that really isn't how I feel. You can find some of the most fantastic watches going vintage, unique pieces, unique complications, precious metal dress watches for unthinkable prices. I think some of the most fun and out there watches you can buy are found vintage, and stylistically they look so cool. Nothing piques my interest more than seeing someone wear a vintage watch, and I just need to ask them about it. Vintage is so cool. But it all depends on how hyper-fixed you are on authenticity, box and papers, service history, all that geeky stuff. And there's no right or wrong answers here. It's just personal preference, maybe how meaningful a watch is to you or how cool you think it is, and how much work and effort you're wanting to put into your timepiece. I am lucky enough to own one proper vintage watch. A vintage Speedmaster from the 1960s. It was a gift from my fabulous friend and general life hero Owl when I was going through probably the darkest time in my life. And it is this watch that has sparked something within me to really want more vintage pieces and has made me see how much they speak to me. And I guess my other vintage watch would be the Tag Heuer F1s. Are these vintage? Let's call them neo-vintage. Calling 1996 vintage hurts my heart, so let's just play this game to help me feel better. I know I'm gonna go deeper and deeper down the vintage rabbit hole, but so far these are the things that have stopped me. But anyways, guys, I'd love to know all your thoughts, opinions, everything about vintage watches. What do you think to vintage? Do you have any vintage watches in your collection? Let me know. I'd love to hear all about it. Did I get anything massively wrong about vintage? Is there an attitude I have that's wrong? Also, let me know. Don't forget to do all that YouTube stuff, feed the algorithm gods, subscribe if you haven't already. And now, let's thank the fabulous, gorgeous, wonderful Pope tier patrons. I hope this is still connected. I did something. I kind of pulled it up. So at the end of the videos, I've been kind of doing a little pregnancy update. Let me show ya. Can you see it? Oh my gosh, that is a big lady. That is a big lady. I am 33 weeks now. And if you don't speak weeks, because like no one does, 7 and a bit months. So it's coming really fast. Gosh. But really quick, biggest thank you ever to Pope tier patrons. Thank you all tier patrons. You're all amazing. I really hope this microphone's connected. You're all amazing. Thank you so much for supporting my weird little channel. I hope you keep enjoying my work. It is the best that my full-time job is just to talk about watches and give my opinion on watches. Could there be a greater dream in life? So thank you so much for helping support this channel. I hope you keep enjoying it. I love you guys. You're all amazing.